drama from the beginning. But anyways, this is what happens in life.
Who are you to know everything I've been through? How could you see all the pieces of me? If you'd open your eyes, you'd see that we are one of the same. As I love, I can also feel the pain. Let me fall deeper into your embrace. Let me fall deeper into my faith. I lost my voice, I feel you standing over me. Strength is a choice, release this uncertainty. Kingdom, will you come? I've come unraveled, I've come undone. All my pain will be washed away. Let me fall deeper into your embrace. Let me fall deeper into my faith. Let me fall deeper into your embrace. Let me fall deeper into my faith. The world we live in can sometimes feel so great, but when you watch what's happening, it's easy to lose your way. Let me fall deeper into your embrace. Let me fall deeper into my faith. Let me fall deeper into your embrace. Let me fall deeper into my faith. Let me fall deeper into your embrace. And I'm standing with my faith.
Hi, everybody, and thank you to Jules Schroeder, who gave us that video to Spirituality Gone Wild, and thank you to Debbie for letting us use that for our show. We have these beautiful musicians that have been donating their YouTube videos or however they stream it for our shows so that we can legally play beautiful music and also give them a platform for their gifts. So thank you, Jules, for that beautiful video of falling into our grace, falling into our faith, falling into everything that's good. And that's the beautiful song. Tonight we have a very special show. My name is Josie Herndon, and I am the host of this show along with Archangel Gabriel, Drama to Dharma. And it's been several weeks since I've had a live show. So I want to thank everybody for coming back. And I'm going to be every week again. We've had some, last week we lost our pet, Gracie, and I just couldn't, I couldn't do it. It was too much. She has been part of our family for 16 years. And so it was like, certainly like losing a family member, because she's been there with us as a pet, as a loving pet, and our toy poodle, Gracie. And so I want to dedicate this show to Gracie and all the beautiful pets out there, all our pet family. Just love on your pets. And, they're with us forever, eternally, Gabriel says, because they're our pets forever. But in the physical realm, they're not always with us forever because their lifespan doesn't last as long as most humans. So we just love on them as they're right here with us. And they are, so healing for most of us. That's how Gracie was. She was always here to heal the girls, my daughters, especially Chelsea and Brianna. Whenever they were sick, she's just right there with them. So this is to my Gray, and I love her very much. And I know she's right here with us. So we're back. We are back. And I want to thank everybody for the support from last week, because I know that some people knew about her passing and just sent me lots of love. And so this show, if this is the first time that you're joining us, I want to welcome you. I channel Archangel Gabriel. I'm writing a book and doing several things. I also own a treatment center. I've been working in the field of addiction and mental health for over 30 years now, since 1987, so it's over 30 years. But that's my life's work, and this is my spiritual work, but it's all combined together. As Gabriel would say, it's all the same. And I've been doing this show since, COVID hit last year, just to kind of get the message out of his divine messages. And I appreciate everybody who's joined us. And tonight we have a very, very special guest that I'm going to be bringing up in a few minutes. His name is TJ Woodward, and some of you may know TJ. So he has a conscious recovery, and it's a fresh perspective on addiction. So he works in our field of addiction, but also in the spiritual realm. He has written 2 books, and I believe I'm reading here, so I don't want to read too much of his bio, but his first book is A Fresh Perspective. Wait, no, that's the second book. I'm sorry. I was looking at this earlier, but he has The Conscious Being, Awakening to Your True Nature. That was his first book. So that's exactly what we talk about on the show, awakening to our true nature, and then conscious recovery, a fresh perspective on addiction. And we're going to talk a lot about both of his books and his relationship with the angels and his spiritual. That's the one thing I love about this show, is that I do have the recoveryview.com show where we talk about recovery professionals, and it's all professional. On Drama to Dharma, we can talk about anything we want when it comes to spirituality. And so if you guys have any questions for the angels, I can answer them. If you have anything for Gabriel, and then of course we have dialogue with our guests. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up TJ so we can start our conversations. Hi, TJ. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Gosh, thank you so much. It's an honor to be in this conversation. And I just, as you're talking about Gracie, my heart is just so open to you. Our pets are so incredible because I think they teach us a couple of things, and I'll speak for myself. Yes. My pets have taught me a couple of things. One is what unconditional love really is, and to really be present and to be grateful for these beautiful little beings that come into our life. And the other benefit is a little bit almost, it might sound almost paradoxical to say it this way, but they also teach us about impermanence and making peace with that, right? And then spiritually permanent.
Right.
And the reason that I'm saying that is I just love the way you framed it. Our pets are with us forever, and then in the physical realm, they're not. And boy, do they have that lesson for us to
be able
to be in the world and not of it.
Yes, and they do. There are teachers, I believe, and they're angels or spiritual beings. And once you connect with that pet, that's your pet. As they say, there's certain pets that'll like find you. It's like no going back from that pet. They're just that's your. And I've met little pets that I don't get along with. That I'm like, gosh, why are you like nipping at my ankle? You go away, you little stinky dog, or something. And then other pets where it's just like, oh my God, I love you so much. So they have their own personality, and energetically they, they relate to you. They're just so interesting. But Gracie was for 16 years. We got her when she was 3 weeks old, and we watched her pass as an old lady. So yeah, she was complete. She had a beautiful life. Let me tell you, she was so spoiled. Toy poodle. She didn't even have bows anymore. She had feathers in her hair. Purple feathers, and she looks so cute. So she would travel with us, and all our family became, so she had a beautiful life. She had a beautiful life.
Our little baby cowboy that we just got less than a year ago, he chose us in that same way. Basically on the side, it said he's essentially unadoptable, and we just felt him. And he said especially doesn't do well with men. And I look at my husband and I say, well, we're both men, so let's see how this goes. We went to meet him, and the rescue people said it had been 18 months. They had taken adoption fairs, and he just would not go up to anyone. He was, biting at people, jumping out of people's arms. Within the first 15 minutes, he came up to us, and within an hour, he was sitting in our lap. So
wow. He was just waiting for you guys to come. Isn't that beautiful? And especially when they say, oh, he's unadoptable. It's like, that's so sad. He's like, I'll show you I'm unadoptable. And I'll show you I hate men. See what you guys know about me. Wow. Well, thank you for allowing me to talk about that, because I haven't really had time to talk about that since it happened. And I wanted to share with our audience, because I know that there are a lot of people in the audience that have beloved pets as well. And that, we all know what this is like, or we've gone through it before. So it's real. It's a real thing. Some people don't understand if they don't have pets, how real it can be, but it truly is, because love is love. Love sees I think energetic love, there's just no barriers, right? It's just love is love. So the love that we have for each other, the love we have for pets, it's all divine.
Yeah. And if I can love other people the way pets love people, wow, there you go. Right. Yeah, just so open, so present, so loving. And they, like we said, there's such great teachers, and my life has been enhanced by having these beautiful little angels. Talk about angels.
Yes.
They're angels on earth.
Totally angels. My daughter took a picture the day after she passed, and it's a picture of an angel in the sky. That was because she said, show yourself to me, Gracie. And it's just this beautiful, and then these little heart rocks. So, it just really, and then in recovery, I know that, there's a saying that if you, to get a plant first, if you can keep a plant alive, right? If you're looking for a relationship, in recovery, or whatever, if you could keep a plant alive, then get a pet. And if you could keep your pet alive, then maybe ask somebody out.
Sage advice for sure.
Start with the plant, and if you don't kill the plant, get a pet. If you don't kill the pet, then you could go out on a date.
Yeah, well,
that a long time ago. That was, or Jim and said that. Yeah,
I couldn't keep plants alive in early recovery, so there you go.
Right. I still have trouble keeping plants alive, but I'm working on it. But I'm out in the desert, so it's you can't really have orchids out here either. But so tell us about your first book. That I'm sorry I kind of botched it up a little bit, but we were talking about our vision and stuff, and I was bragging about how I could see, and now I'm like moving this way over here. I'm going, all right. But your first book is Conscious Being: Awakening to Your True Nature. So when did you write that book and publish it?
That book came out in 2015, and it had been something that had lived in me for very, very long. And I actually went through, I guess, what we would call a dark night of the soul. And during that dark night of the soul period, I had opportunity to really go within and reflect and really kind of shift my life from a mind-based reality into really connecting deeply with my true nature, and that really listening deeply to the internal voice. And this book came through, and I wanted to write a book. And this was the intention of my first book, because I had read so many spiritual books. And when I was early in my path, specifically, I would read a page of a book, and then I didn't comprehend what it said. And I would reread it. And I said, I want to write a book that is just like you and I are sitting down having a conversation about some really deep spiritual truths that had really transformed my life in a beautiful and powerful way.
Yeah.
The woman who came into my life when I was 20 years old that really changed the trajectory of my life. And really, I dedicate all of my work to her, but specifically Conscious Being is a lot of her teaching and how she showed up in my life.
Wow. Beautiful. And so then from there, you're now a published author. And how long did it take for you to publish your second book?
Well, my second book came out 2 years later. And that book, it's really interesting, Josie, because I promise you, I did not want to write a recovery book. I really didn't. I didn't want to be pigeonholed as recovery. And I love that you talked about in the beginning that it's really all one. And that's what Gabriel has told us, right?
Yes, yes.
Because I really did in my mind have my recovery work, because I've been working in the field for 30 years, off and on myself, full time for 12 years. And I had sort of compartmentalized it. And part of that is when I started working full time in the field, even in 2008, some of what we were doing spiritually, we were almost in the closet a little bit. Like I wasn't really with all of this, that I was,
I was in the closet for a long time spiritually.
Exactly.
Yeah. When it came to this, with our industry and my work, yeah. I mean, because I did keep it separate for around that time, 2008, 2009. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll never forget with some colleagues. We were in my office. It was with some colleagues, and we were all sitting there, and I was talking to them about Gabriel, and this was probably like 4 or 5 years ago, and they were like, I remember they were all like sitting on the couch going, "What?" And then they were all excited and they wanted me to, and then they're like, "Woo, she had a coming out party right now." This is like, she's coming out of the closet with her spiritual work. I was with Jeff Flood, and I don't know, there was, a bunch of guys, and they were like excited for me and very supportive. And so I was talking to somebody about that today, my publisher, actually, because I'm working on my book. And I was saying how even before COVID, I wasn't as open, but somehow things have shifted this last year spiritually. I think people are more open to it and they're actually seeking it. So we were talking about how just the more transparent we are about our spirituality, and for me to, not be nervous about talking about, what I do with the angels, and then you with yours, and, all of that stuff, that people are really searching for that. So, and, from our audience, if you guys have any questions, but our audience here has always been very supportive. They love it. So have you, when you talk about conscious recovery, I think about it as almost, when I hear the word conscious recovery, I think about mindfulness, meditation, which has been really done, I think, in a sense, just those words. But how do you phrase it, conscious recovery? I mean, how do you feel that spiritually? Because I know we're one of your conscious recovery at ATS. We're signing up. We're starting next week. So I'm very proud to announce that we're going to be one of your certified treatment facilities. And so I just kind of wanted to get from you, the creator of the conscious recovery method, like what was your vision when you put this together?
Well, it really came out of my own experience. And I think it's kind of a twofold answer. One, when I was 18 months sober, I found myself feeling suicidal. And I was sober at a time and a place when people said things like, you don't worry about addressing any of your underlying issues or your past. Just don't drink today. And if you don't drink today, it's a successful day, and just go help someone else. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering why I was feeling suicidal, because I hadn't addressed the underlying root causes that were actually driving the addiction. And then the second piece, which is even, I think, more important in a lot of ways, and that is conscious recovery. The foundation of it is that underneath all addictive behavior is an essential self that's whole and perfect. Mm-hmm. And so often people with addiction are viewed as broken or damaged. And in my experience, in my own recovery journey and working with clients over the years, they already feel broken, right? They already feel damaged and broken. And I think our industry, well-intended, or, I think with great intention, have, they've been trained to diagnose and treat. And in a way, it's like, what's wrong with you and how do I help you fix that? And conscious recovery is coming in with a really different question. And that is, how do we hold space for someone to rediscover their true nature, to return to that place of perfection, that they're not broken, that underneath all of it, they're whole and perfect. So right. That's the foundational principle. And I have just, I've been doing this method on my own for 12 years in the addiction recovery world. and it's been getting just profound results. And a few years ago, I asked myself the question, right after I said I don't want to write a recovery book, then I started asking the question, what is my point of view on recovery? And can I share this with more people? And can I train other people to really hold a space for someone to reconnect with their true nature?
That's beautiful, because it takes a village and it takes many tools. And that's why with our treatment center, we're blessed that we're small and basically, quote unquote, mom and pop shop or whatever. My husband, Jim, and I own it. So we can bring in these different tools. We have many years of experience. So we use a lot of the old traditional, of course, and then bringing in something like your new program that is spiritual, and because everything is spiritual. I mean, the 12 steps are very spiritual. I always say Bill W. started this how many years ago when he was alive, and I believe by now he would have progressed it would have kept a progression going. I mean, he talks about that, the progression. And then, so I think that this is beautiful because it's all everything that they all say the same thing, right? Anything spiritual takes you to the same place, I believe,
Right.
which would be like the 12 steps, would be conscious recovery. And then the trauma work, you always want to do that in a safety with therapists, so the therapists that are in alignment with this, and then to do the trauma work with your therapist, it needs to be released, like you said, and then adding the spiritual piece. I think we're going to have a great program. Yeah, we have a really good team, and I'm excited, for this, and for people to know that it's not just one way. So if somebody's saying, only do it this way, follow your spirit, follow your soul, know that you're a perfect being. I would do my spiritual groups and I would tell them that you're perfect. Everything that happens in my group, I'd say, you don't have to tell your counselors and therapists, because you guys can take a nap if you want. We're doing a meditation. You can, this is like chill zone, and we're going to play some bowls, and we're going to just, do those kinds of things and just have a conversation. And so, that would be that part of it. So, I mean, it takes a lot of different modalities to, I think, because we're all just trying to help each other. We're all human, trying to help other humans.
Exactly. And, it's so interesting that you're speaking to something that just the human mind tends to think it's either this or it's that, right? And we have trained. Someone asked me, well, can someone get sober and stay sober on conscious recovery alone? And my answer is, oh, I hope not.
Right.
Because it's really about discovering, as you said, what are these different paths, and how do I really take all these different amazing awarenesses that people have brought, and it's not one size fits all, right? So we have CBT, we have DBT, we have 12 that has such deep wisdom, and then put together, we're just offering people more of an opportunity for them to break the cycle of addiction. And really, I think what makes conscious recovery a little bit different, because you spoke to this, yes, it's mindfulness and it has that piece to it, but it's really much more than that. It really is, what are the unconscious biases and beliefs that I've been holding about myself in the world, my own brokenness, something's wrong with me. In conscious recovery, we identify the root causes of addiction as unresolved trauma, spiritual disconnection, and toxic shame, right? So if we feel broken, it's not really going to help for a counselor, a sponsor, a therapist, someone well-intending to say, yeah, you are broken and I have answers on how to help fix you. When we come into it by asking the question, how do I hold a space for myself to recognize the wholeness in this person and for them to rediscover that? Because once we make a connection with our true nature, healing the trauma becomes much easier. Healing shame becomes much easier, and then reconnecting with ourselves does as well.
It's interesting because it's like a spiritual conundrum, and everything is so individual, because depending on the person, some people actually need that, that really tough boundary, to say, not to beat them up or anything, but to say, look, you haven't had a boundary in your life for a long time, and you're, out doing these things. So, go to a 12-step meeting, go humble yourself by, making the coffee. I mean, that just helps so much, right? Being in the rooms with others that are the same, and just, helping each other out. That's a beautiful place to be. So, in one hand, it's just, it's such a difficult thing to, when you're trying to, help somebody that is in such distress, especially right now with mental illness, being such a forefront because of the pandemic. How can we tie the conscious recovery into with our mentally ill clients, or maybe somebody that just comes in with depression or anxiety that may not have an addiction? Would this benefit them as well?
Absolutely. And right now, what I'm doing is I'm working on, there's a lot happening kind of behind the scenes, but one of the things I'm doing is I'm creating workbooks specific to certain audiences.
Okay.
And I'm partnering with specialties, people who have a specialty that are experts in their niche. So I'm right now about to launch Conscious Recovery for Teens, and then we're launching Conscious Recovery for Eating Disorders. But we're So I'm going to be talking with someone next week. He doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to be asking him if he wants to co-author Conscious Recovery for mental well-being or mental health, because it's interesting. Addiction isn't really the problem, right? Addiction is a solution. And in Conscious Recovery, we call it a brilliant strategy. And it's funny because my editor, when she was reading the book, when it was first published, she said, the second half of the book, you don't talk about addiction. You might want to go back and add more about addiction in there. And I said, no, this is very conscious, because once we reconnect with our true nature and once we heal some of the underlying issues, it's no longer about the addiction. It's then about how do we create a life where we're thriving, right? So,
right.
That's a very long way to say someone can pick up Conscious Recovery book and workbook right now that doesn't classically have an addiction and still get a lot from it.
That's great. That's great. Just like the 12 steps, right? 12 steps is for anybody. Yeah. Al-Anon, for NA, everything. I mean, it's just the process again. So we have a question here. How does Conscious Recovery help people get out of their own way?
Well, there are 3 steps: awareness, awareness, and awareness. I say that half. There's a framework that we use in Conscious Recovery that's very, very simple, actually. If you imagine that you plant a seed, so let's say you plant a maple seed. If you plant a maple seed, what are you going to get? You're going to get a maple tree. Right. Would it be unrealistic to plant a maple seed and think you're going to get an elm tree? We use this as a metaphor for the unconscious, right? So when we say get out of your own way, most likely the behavior is a result of a core fault, what I call a core false belief, or something that's buried in the unconscious. For example, if someone's walking around with a core false belief that I'm not lovable, those are the seeds that have been planted, and they're growing I'm not lovable trees everywhere. And then the behavior, the strategy is to try to manage that. So getting out of our own way is first recognizing that I am not my behavior and that the world is not happening to me. When I understand that my unconscious biases, beliefs, and the frequency that I'm holding is actually what's creating life, then it becomes a really different equation. Then I can start to become curious about how I unlearn some of that. But then, it always goes back to this with Conscious Recovery, so that we can return to our whole and perfect spiritual nature, so that we can reconnect with our true nature.
Yes, that's beautiful. Now we have another question. Oh, here we go. Michelle Joy. Hi, Michelle Joy Del Rey. Thank you. Thank you for this work and for this interview. At our core, we are already whole, complete, and able. Yes.
That's exactly it. At our core, we are already whole, complete, and capable or able. And I think that's what's really different, because, Josie, you and I have been in this field for a long time. Mm-hmm. And back in the 80s, I mean, let's just name it. Back in the 80s, sit down, shut up, you don't know anything. Let me tell you how to live your life, right?
Right. Therapeutic community approach.
Right. Yeah. And there's nothing inherently right or wrong about that. Right. I just became really curious why we're seeing clients come back to treatment 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, and why about a 10 to 15% success rate, and can we do better? And this idea that someone might already be at their core whole and complete, and have the answers within them, it's a game changer. Now, it doesn't mean they can do it alone, right? If they're at one of the most difficult moments of their life when they come to treatment.
Yes, it is. It is. and it's a beautiful time for them, hopefully. What is conscious recovery's path to releasing shame is another question we have.
Yeah, well, shame, I think shame, I love what Brene Brown says about what creates shame or what allows shame to grow: secrecy, silence, and judgment.
Mm.
Conscious recovery, we're looking at, again, it's the core false beliefs that are creating the shame. Many people are walking around with an internal dialogue that they're not even aware of. Once we become aware of that, it becomes really interesting, because a lot of the models, some of the models of modalities of treatment will say rewrite the narrative or change the story or opposite action. And with conscious recovery, we say, yeah, that's great. And unless we get down to where this originated and start to really learn how to care for that part of ourselves that still feels wounded, the change in the narrative doesn't really work. So in my own life, I believed I was unlovable. And if someone were to say to me, you're a wonderful person, I would literally recoil because it's in alignment with my frequency. So the shame work, it comes through authenticity, it comes through vulnerability, but it really, ultimately, the healing comes from making a deep connection with that part of ourself that feels wounded. For some of us, that we call it inner child work, self-parenting, reparenting. That is the deeper work with shame.
Yeah, definitely. And we do that very well also safely at ATS with Dr. Ray. He does the inner child work, and that's very helpful. So it takes a lot of different modalities for, and we never know what's going to work until that person, and the bottom line, once they get it, it is a spiritual awakening. It's a spiritual experience. Every one that I've asked, through all these years, it's always been a spiritual awakening. When I say, how is it that you've been able to stay clean and sober so long? That's the common denominator. So this is beautiful work. And like you said, you just put it out there without, I love the way that the conscious recovery is not saying, okay, this is just like a Buddhism 12 steps or any of that, although that's all great as well, but this is open for everybody, right? So it's not a specific religion, or although it's, very, very spiritual. So like you said, anybody could use it.
Yeah. And it's interesting because a lot of times, especially a lot of the clients, and Josie, you know this well, that we work with that are in early recovery, they might not really understand what spirituality means to them.
Right.
It doesn't matter actually what I believe spirituality is, because to me, spirituality isn't about a belief anyway. It's about an experience.
Right.
So I've worked with people with conscious recovery. I worked with a client. I remember her. I can see her face. And she said, my higher power is Jesus. You're never going to change that. And she loved conscious recovery. And someone else is like, I am absolutely atheist. I do not believe in a higher power. I'm not trying to find a higher power.
Mm-hmm.
They loved conscious recovery.
Oh, yeah.
The idea of returning to their essential beingness or their true nature was something that resonated for both of those people. Yeah. So conscious recovery, to the best of our ability, is not a belief system. I call it BS belief systems.
That's great.
About creating an experience.
It's an experience.
Because
I love it.
That's how we really change, right? I get that moment.
It's a feeling.
Yeah,
it's hard to explain that beautiful feeling. So we have a couple of questions. Let's see. Right. From Carly. From Carly Howard, how do we disconnect from the anxiety that comes from a core belief that I need to stop something bad from happening?
Okay, how do I disconnect from the anxiety that comes? Well, first of all, I want to share with you a framework that I use that for me is a game changer. A lot of times we view anxiety as either a feeling, I feel anxious, or a condition. I have anxiety. I have this condition that's anxiety. In conscious recovery, we come in and ask the question, it's a question to be explored. What if anxiety was actually a strategy, not a conscious strategy, right? Like, I don't know anyone that wakes up and says, I hope today is a super anxious day.
Yeah.
But that strategy of anxiety is trying to manage something. So a big part of conscious recovery is let's shift out of good, bad, right, wrong paradigm and become curious. The acronym I use, Josie, and you probably won't believe this, but I'm studying to become a cop.
Okay.
Curious, open, and present.
Perfect. Perfect.
So with anxiety, and the anxiety that comes from the core false belief, absolutely, right? I'm managing something, and for many people, we aren't even aware that what the core false belief is, or the core frequency that we're carrying, and therefore we tend to believe that the world is happening to us, right? Why do I keep finding myself in these relationships with unavailable people? Why am I back in that same job with a toxic work environment? We hear this a lot. And so what we're inviting in this deeper work is to say, okay, let's unplug from that, because that's the out picturing, and plug into what's the core false belief, what's the vibration or the frequency that I am, tuned into, that's creating what I call reality. This isn't so that we can blame ourselves. This is so we can empower ourselves, because
Yes.
I was walking around with a narrative that I'll never be successful, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, and I kept seeing it everywhere.
Right.
And when I realized, oh my gosh, I can unplug from that, and I can start to actually heal and start to become curious about that core belief, and then the externals of my life started really taking care of themselves as I changed that frequency. And I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, she's specifically, it sounds like her anxiety comes from the belief that I need to stop something bad from happening. So that would be extremely anxiety driven if I felt like I had to stop something bad from happening.
So what we would want to be curious about is, what's the underlying fear there? I need to stop something bad from happening, because if it does, this is what I'll experience. Or we could begin to become curious about what creates that anxiety about something bad happening, because the reality is we live on planet Earth, right? We just talked about beautiful Gracie. She was with you for all those years. And then the moment comes when she dies, and there's the experience, whatever that is. For many of us, that's sadness.
Yes.
But if we were to walk around thinking that should never happen, that's when we stop, right? Because the reality of life is things have a beginning and end, beginning, a middle, and an end. When we tap into our spiritual essence, and this is where all across the board, spiritual teachers have been saying for centuries, we can tap into what's unchangeable, unharmable. And when I understand that, then I don't have the same level of anxiety about bad things happening. There was an extensive study done, and I love these clinical studies, a study done on why some people had higher levels of anxiety during COVID. And this extensive study, the conclusion was people who had high levels of anxiety about COVID were people who had high levels of anxiety. Right? So it's not really, something like COVID or something that
But that exacerbated it.
Exactly.
That really gave something to hang on to, especially if they watched the news all day.
Right.
Then it was just like, how could you not be? Well, we have a question here from Dr. Ray. I have always heard the phrase holding the space. It feels overused. What is your definition of holding the space?
I love this. Thank you for that. And I will admit that it is. I do hear it overused, and I'm going to tell you what I mean by it. I'll just tell you what I mean by it, because it's very, very simple, and it's very, for me, it's very clear. I am looking for the essential wholeness in the person I'm sitting with, regardless of what they're presenting with, regardless of what they're experiencing, regardless of what addiction they're coming out of. I am holding the space, meaning that I'm creating the space and I'm looking for that wholeness. Quantum mechanics now shows us that the observer has a profound effect. Now, we knew, those of us who have been in spiritual life and spiritual teachings have known that for a long time. Science is now measuring that. Like, wow, if I look for what's broken, I find it. So that's what it means to me. Very, very simple. I am in the midst of anything happening. Ray and I used to work in a residential treatment together. And one of the things that I got to do back in 2008 and 2009 is meet with a lot of the clients that were, emotionally dysregulating, also known as having a meltdown or losing their blank. Um, the reason that I was a person that they would often call to meet with someone is I learned a long time ago what someone's upset about is not what they're upset about. And if I come in and try to like navigate or negotiate with the issue they're having, we're just in this really interesting place. When I'm open and say, wow, I wonder what's really happening here. And I wonder if my observing them as having the answer within them might make a difference. That's what I mean by holding a space.
That's what I was thinking the same thing when I, because the words are only words. Gabriel says it's all about energy. So, we can, overuse certain words. But for me, it's almost just like listening, right? Being there, listening, being a mirror in a sense to them, where they feel safe talking to you, and then they're getting their own answers by hearing their voice speaking, these words coming out of their soul. So, it's an interesting when you're in that sacred space, and as therapists, of course, they're doing that. They may not call it that, but that's what they're doing because that person feels safe enough to open up their spirit and their soul to their deepest, darkest everything, right? That's holding them back and keeping them using and all the relapse triggers because they think that all these things should be forever like hidden. Like in the old days, the older generations, that they take things to their, grave with them. That was always the saying, right? I'm taking this to my grave, which so many of our relatives have taken family secrets to grave. And now, with the all the ancestry.com, all those old secrets are coming out, all these siblings people didn't know about or whatever, all the secrets that, they took to their graves with ancestry.com, it's like, wait, how was it that I was, this, for my whole life, I thought I was this and, whatever. So everything kind of, but that's all part of, I think, in my mind is, when I think of those words, holding space, it's just to sit there and be there in a beautiful way for them to share those secret. I mean, whatever it is they're sharing. And then you say a few words and, because it's a very spiritual experience when you're with somebody that's opening up their soul, I think, in a sense.
And you said to me the most important thing, and that is, how do I create a safe space? How do I help someone? Now, we could say, I can't make someone feel safe, but I can certainly, because you said something that's really important, and you'll see next Friday in the training, we spend a lot of time on this, and that is the way we really communicate is energetic. It's not about words and it's not about body language. It's really about an energy. And our clients, and the way I say it is our clients who have trauma, which are 100% of them, because human beings born on planet Earth, we have trauma. That's just, that's it, right?
Yeah.
They're very aware of who feels safe and who doesn't feel safe. And they might not even be really consciously aware of why, but they've got these receptors out because they've come from, like many of us, family systems that weren't safe, schools, everything that's happened where they're guarded. And then when someone like Josie, like when someone like you sits with them and you're just open with them and they feel that, sometimes they can instantly start crying, or they can instantly, we can see them calm down. And then we're in a really different paradigm because Josie said it so beautifully. They're going to start accessing their own inner wisdom, and I'm going to witness that. My role in that, though, is to create that safe space. And what does that take? That takes me healing my own trauma, and that takes me having a very deep spiritual practice.
That's absolutely key. That kind of segues into my next question, is that now post-pandemic, I mean, I feel like as humans, we're all on the same plane pretty much because we've all experienced this traumatic experience of this last year, regardless if we were all touched by it one way or the other, the entire planet, right? So now we're coming back to work, we're doing our things out there, going back out. There's a lot of people afraid to re-entry and things like that. There's that kind of anxiety. So I guess I just want to, say that, acknowledge that we're all, in the same place. And therapists and counselors are, we had before what we would call chronic fatigue, or what was it? Compassion fatigue, right? Compassion fatigue. And so we did a lot of workshops on compassion fatigue. Well, I think it's beyond compassion fatigue for those of us who have been working this entire time, frontline workers in hospitals, nurses, doctors. I mean, oh my God, you know, the psychiatrist, all of us, we've just been trying to help our clients and our patients through this. And so I think a lot of us have this compassion fatigue on steroids in a sense, but we may not even know it. But I do know that nurses and doctors right now are having a really hard time. Is there anything that you can speak to that as well?
Well, I'm excited because this is, I think, maybe the most important conversation. And that is it possible that our work can be energizing rather than depleting? And if it is possible, what creates that? And that's a big part of what we're going to do on Friday as well. Next Friday, Josie, what I call the energizing power of presence. When I am even unconsciously believing that I'm supposed to have the answers for my clients, that they're damaged or broken, and that I'm here to either save them or fix them or help heal them. When I'm in that paradigm, yes, I get burnt out. It's depleting. When I come in and say, let me look for the wholeness in them, let me recognize, as the question said, that they already have within them the answers. I'm holding a space and being curious with them on how we access that. There's something that shifts that actually creates an energetic, it's actually energizing. This work can be energizing. It doesn't mean I don't have sometimes, like I remember when I worked, you know, Ray and I worked at this incredible treatment program together years ago, and I would take the ferry home, and I had this little corner of the ferry. I could stand out on the platform and I would just let myself cry. And that was what I needed to do, because yes, I had absorbed, but I wasn't taking it on from the place of like, oh, these poor people are broken and I've taken on all their pain. No, I was an open vessel and I allowed myself to feel. And my process for that was, let me allow myself to cry and release this as I'm headed home. And I discovered a long time ago that this work can actually be energizing rather than depleting.
I agree. I've had people tell me, like, when I channel, oh, are you exhausted? Is that exhausting? And actually it gives me energy. It absolutely gives me energy. But sometimes it has been exhausting depending on who I'm around. I mean, if I'm in a group with people that are, because when you're open and your energy's open, it can deplete or it can stimulate, right? Yeah. So that's a very good conversation, because I think we, as healers, there's a lot of spiritual healers out there, and, different, therapeutic healers and medical healers. There's just so many. Everybody that has a healing job or a healing path to their life, they're all feeling it. We're all feeling it. We're empaths. We do this to help people, and we've bared witness to a lot of trauma this last year. And now, I want to encourage people to do self-care, to take care of themselves, and maybe, read the book for themselves. And then in turn, because, there's a lot of us that said, okay, I've been doing this work for 30 years, or I've got, my doctor, I've got all these degrees, I know everything. Well, okay, it's one thing to know things in your mind, but does your spirit, we always need a boost, right? Let's just, put all that away and then use this possibly as a tool just to get plugged back in. I'm always learning. I'm like the student of life. I'm with the book today, in my session with Kathy, we were talking about how I'm just going to start redoing my meditations in the morning, my bring back out my sound bowls, do more ceremony stuff only. And I hadn't done that in a long time, because I was like, oh yeah, I did that a lot, no, it's okay. I might need that as another boost, to add that back into my daily regime, where that was part of it for a long time, but I maybe have been busy or thinking I don't need that because, but whatever it is, it could just be that. It could be reading a new book. I mean, I think we all kind of need something that's going to stimulate us and just kind of help self-care, soothe us. Maybe, I don't know if I'm looking for a word, but like self-soothing, just so that we can keep, going on without feeling that we're tired, or, that this has been, because it has been a pretty exhausting year for many people.
For sure. And I remember early in the pandemic, really having, struggling. And I thought, wow, I have a pretty deep spiritual life. I have a lot of resources. I've got great friends. I've got great
Yes.
support. And I imagine someone who doesn't have that and how difficult this could be for them. And, I think when we talk about this conversation about being depleted or being energized, what I want to acknowledge is that energy itself is unlimited. It's limitless. It's unlimited.
Oh,
There's
yes.
boundless amount. And when I tap into that, I can
Mhm.
actually find myself being energized regardless. Now, that doesn't mean I don't need to take care of the body. And like, who
Right.
doesn't have a spa day, right? But if it was just a spa day or, an extra day off or an extra 2 hours of sleep, people wouldn't be burnt out. So yes, it's that, but it's much deeper than that. And I think that's what we want to
Well,
explore.
it is. It's almost like a lethargy because, we've been home, we've been napping, we've been watching TV, we've been eating extra at night, we've been Netflixing, we've been doing all the things that we probably used to dream, wouldn't it be nice to do, and we've got to do it. And so now I think, it could even be we're just tired because we've just been like on the couch for a while too. So it could just be as simple as I just need to go move my body and, just get some. So there's a lot of things, that we're all feeling right now. But
Yeah.
I think that your book, your work is wonderful. It's brilliant. I look forward to being a certified treatment center in, conscious recovery. Next Friday, TJ's coming out to our facility and training our staff. I'm very excited about that, and hosting you for the day at our facility to really teach our staff how to use these tools.
Well,
So,
I'm
yeah.
excited as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything that you want to say in closing, or any way you'd like to? We have 8 minutes left, so you have a couple minutes if you want to do something fun with our audience.
Well, I would just say let's take a look at what we would like to see different in our lives, and look at it from a little bit different perspective maybe than the traditional route, right? I mean, I think especially now in our culture, there's this whole thing about like life hacks and change your thinking, and how do we have the like crush it and dominate? And we're going to look at it a little bit differently. I'm actually just completed writing my third book, which will be coming out later this year, and it's Conscious Creation.
Nice.
How do we, it's 5 steps to embracing the life of your dreams. And it's really different than like thinking that I have to figure out how to do it and make it happen and push and struggle. This is really about a recognition that when we create some space for ourselves, right? So we can talk about holding space for others, but a mindfulness practice, a meditation practice, and it's really about tapping into that inner wisdom and that place within us that does have that boundless energy. And when we listen very carefully to the inner knowing, like in my case, like I said, I didn't want to write a recovery book. And I was like, no way, I'm not doing it. That was my mind. Nope, not going to do it.
But Spirit said otherwise.
Why? And then because what I've learned to do is listen to inner wisdom and yield to that. And that doesn't mean I don't get my way. That actually means is I start to create a life that's so much more on purpose than my mind could create. And as conscious recovery came kind of pouring out of me, I was like, oh, now I see why the inner wisdom wanted me to write this book. It wasn't about an idea I had. This was about being.
Oh, Gabriel, he always says that they recommend, but of course we could do whatever we want.
Yes. And we know what happens.
highly recommend that this could be a good idea for you to do.
That's right. And I mean, I think all of us as human beings know what happens when we yield to that or resist that, right? I mean,
we just keep learning the whatever lessons we're doing, or that's another thing. It's just like, I love that your book is going to be conscious creating, because it's basically coming from within yourself. And that's what I was talking about, pretty much about like self-care. That's about us, loving ourselves, listening to ourselves. Oh, I'm so excited for that book to come out. When do you think that book will be released?
Well, it will be, let's see. I'm just sitting with the energy of it. It feels like October.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Gabriel's book should be coming out September. It
Oh,
feels like
wonderful.
September. So that's what I've been saying. So that's, I just basically, I'm just, that's what I'm claiming, that September I'm going to dedicate this summer to finishing the book. So maybe our books will come out around the same time and we can
Oh, how wonderful.
have some fun with that.
Take it on the road. Do
it on the road. Yeah, exactly. Because they definitely complement each other.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for being part of our show tonight and just being part of our family. You're always, welcome on my show. And when you have new ideas or new books, just, I'd love to have you come back and share them with us. And I look forward to seeing you next Friday with our team. And again, everybody, TJ Woodward, and he has just been such a blessing to us in Conscious Recovery.
So thank you.
Yes, thank you for coming. I'm going to have Debbie put up our little commercial about ATS, our sponsor.
Yay.
My name is Christopher Zwick. I've struggled with addiction for all of my adult life. I went from alcohol to opiates to heroin and meth. I spiraled down until I ended up in the hospital, malnourished and suicidal. I was the shell of the man I used to be. Then, I found hope. I found ATS. Advanced Therapeutic Services provided me with a safe environment and the tools necessary to recover. I learned how to address the root issues behind the addiction. I now have over a year clean. I owe my life to ATS.
Well, I want to thank Christopher for that great testimonial. He's one of our alumni, and he put that together for us. And I want to share with you a couple of comments that I didn't see, but we have Joe Slicker that says, great interview, thank you. And thank you, Joe. And we have Denise Klein. You two are amazing. So Denise was in the house. Enjoyed the show. So that's wonderful. We were just talking about Denise today. Her ears must have been burning, but she's wonderful. She has the Malibu program. So I just want to thank you on behalf of our industry for the work that you're doing and the courage that it took to put this book together. It's just amazing that that you're on your third book. And I think it's easier probably once you start. Oh, here's Renee. She says, thank you, TJ. You have a true gift. Many blessings for your book and creation. It will rock this world. Yay. Thank you, Renee. That's my friend from Chicago. Thank you so much. And then, of course, Denise sends us a smooch. So we love Denise smoochies. Back. Oh, well, thank you. It's been a wonderful evening. And I just want to thank all our audience for being here, participating, commenting, asking questions, and all your little hearts. That's perfect for us. And I look forward to seeing you again next Thursday at 7 o'clock, Drama to Dharma. If I'm not live once in a while, we will still have a replay of an old show. So there's always going to be a Drama to Dharma Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard. Thank you so much for your love and support. And thank you, TJ.